Well, earlier my colleague Lindsay Williams spoke to George Herman, who is a partner at Citadel Investment Services, on investors looking for returns as developed nations maintain their economic stimulus.
We all bear the scars of especially US Treasuries that since it's been trading close to 3%, everybody's been calling the bottom in that, and it's just been going lower. But how do you transpose all of that back into the domestic market, and suddenly the only thing that you need to buy is South African bonds, and then it's perfect?
But wait a second, I mean, if you're a simple person like me and you're sitting in London, I've just got a job at a financial services company, I'm fresh-faced and bushy-tailed and bright-eyed, and I see my list of bonds, and I see 8.4% for the R186 in South Africa. I see the Rand being relatively stable over the last few months, and I see the German and Swiss and every other bond with negative yields. I say, excuse me, sir, can I put a chunk of my discretionary money into this? And they'll say, yeah, go for it. What's wrong with that?
It's not you, as you described, they're a simple person. It's even smart people around the world. They ask me, the only criteria is, what's your bond yields? Oh, it's got an 8 in front, is it? And then suddenly it's perfect.
Yes.
You know, since when is the only criteria the fact that it's a high, relatively high rate? And that is the problem, is we've transposed the very low interest rates in developed markets as now through globalization, and those yield-hungry investors have all arrived here, and that's the only criteria, is that it's 8%. That's just not good enough. That's 8% is there for a reason.
So this is the simpleton's criteria. You see the big 8 in front versus the minus 0.2. Okay, it's a good start, though. But what's the flaw in that argument?
The flaw in that argument is that it assumes homogeneous risk spreads across all geographies, and that's simply not true. The reason why we trade at 8 is because it contains a lot of risks.
But the risk is historic. What's happened is now that we don't believe that we're actually stabilizing, and so therefore, of course, there's going to be no rating downgrade. That's what people say. You don't believe that, I know. But it takes a while for people to actually come to the party of South Africa stabilization.
Absolutely true, but extrapolating forward, the very short-term positiveness that we experience now is not necessarily a great forecasting method for the medium to long-term in our market anyhow.
Okay.
The many of the risks that we faced a year ago when we were very negative about the world still exist today. The Fed, in fact, the moment of the Fed eventually hiking is getting closer and closer, whenever you may decide that to be. And that is a monster risk. We have the US elections. Our domestic political environment definitely hasn't calmed down. In fact, it's become more spicy. So to extrapolate just this good news forward, I think is a bit easy.
Become more spicy, which is good for the long term. But what you do point out here is that you say the following: the threat of a South African debt downgrade and a call by the ruling African National Congress to reprioritise the budget as it tries to win back support after a drubbing in municipal elections. So what you're saying is that the vibrant political environment is actually going to bite us because the ANC is going to do drastic things in order to regain support. And reprioritising the budget is what you call fancy speak. How fancy?
Whenever they use big words like that, they're trying to hide a message. The message in that is, well, we're going to tear up the budget that we published in February, and we're now going to reprioritize expenditure into some other way. So this is not criticism only of the ruling party necessarily. No. This is the financial markets facing uncertainty of what we had as certainty in February is now suddenly in August is no good enough anymore. So what's next? And that's the problem with financial markets, is uncertainty. Policy uncertainty is not good for financial markets.
Reprioritising the budget is a call from the ANC. They might then have to remove certain people at the top that are responsible for the budget, because that's the only way it's going to be reprioritised.
I can't comment on that, but as you've seen in the local elections, even the financial markets applauded an efficient election, and even the fact that the ruling party was just placed under scrutiny and some more competition in all the spheres of government, the financial markets actually applauded that.
Okay, so what are you doing now? Because I've said for so long now I'd like to get together with some like-minded people, and when I say like-minded, people that have got loads of money and I haven't, and set up a short bond fund, get short of bonds long term, whether it be through options, whether it be through the real thing. Would South African bonds be part of your short bond fund that we set up together?
It depends on your time horizon. I wouldn't think it would be, actually, because the South African bond market is not in a bubble. As I walked in, you mentioned that, but it is not that it's majorly overvalued relative to inflation. So let's call inflation over the next year around about 6%, so just over 8% on bonds. It's not really in a bubble from a valuation perspective. It is just for us at Citadel, we manage long-term wealth management for clients, and the risks that we face in the short to medium term in that asset class, which is supposedly the most safe asset class, is not the right place to be. So yes, I would go underweight of bonds right now, but maybe in a short fund, I'll wait a little bit before shorting South African bonds.
And that's George Herman, partner at Citadel Investment.